It's April 21st, 2022. It's like these are conversations I never wanted to have. Definitely not on a personalized. I mean, I'm on this YouTube because I'm an 8 and I belong to a 7 that I'm supposed to look up to for answers, but I don't have him in my daily walkabout. Well, stuck here somewhere between a Big Apple, an Empire State, and a New York State. For certain, my U.S. Title IX's been either obstructed, absconded, withheld, violated, for certain. But there seems to be this word I just learned of an interloper and family values. Now, if as a flower for a hummingbird who arrives, whether it's in a potted plant or not at the moment, for transport, it just arrived, and it still belongs to the hummingbird that it was built for. So, who's 6 foot over. So now, in this meadow, or in this blades of grass, because I can't really, I saw when I was younger, meadow type, whatever, when I moved out to Long Island. Perhaps meadow representatives, I don't know. It was more of a likely possibility than blades of grass. But then once whatever, and whatever. And then back to the fallout shelter area, which it's posted on the telephone building, so I don't know how else to describe the area other than what the signs posted say. Right on Main Street or there, Bell Boulevard. But there's definitely family values problem in a Title IX area for which I've already had my personal rights violated, and there are interlopers here without causing massive upset. How does one state the obvious? I still belong to a number 7. I still belong to a hummingbird. I'm still a number 8. I'm still a flower. And I am not, at the moment, it doesn't feel like there's any meadow representatives around. And there also does not seem to be any blades of grass. And if there are, it's a rare instance that it's a very, like, wind, like, as a wind, like, blowing through the meadow kind of an encounter. It's not a very whatever. But I see on here, I did not know that the U.S. has something called U.S. Spy something. They hired somebody who was autistic. Hold on, my son is calling me. So I see on the television, they have somebody who has something called autism, but high-functioning autism, who does something that they're referring to as geospatial work. Again, these are not things that they've said on the television before that I've been able to catch. like a word will pop into my head and I'll start to think about it and then I'll contemplate on it and I'll build a construct on what it could possibly mean in a two triangle state kind of a way that are separated by other things. But there's definitely some form of, I forget the word, it's not a pivotal, but it's close enough, and it's definitely not a plum, because that in family values and interlopers gets confusing. So I look on here, and now inside of this US spy whatever, the higher up or the managing person inside of the US, while I'm having violations against my ability to enter into such a system, happens to be of value of a different range completely. Unbeknownst source, I don't know. But I don't understand why, knowing with autism, I mean, like, do you have to have a professional diagnosis? Why was it not? I mean, I went through Gateway when I was younger. There were specific tests that were taken. There were specific elementary school things that went on. They could have picked me directly up from elementary school straight into a career, which would have been the cleanest way to go. But instead, my inside of a U.S., even with Empire State there in a Big Apple, my Title IX was violated. And now they're showing what's running or what's hiring. They hired a whatever who's wearing pearls. But they hired her and she's doing work, which is wonderful. They use the word portfolio, which I've heard, but in a different contextual tapestry. But the person, her manager, is in family values ongoing issue that I'm experiencing in New York at like a weed level of interlopers into a meadow that now doesn't look like a meadow, but there's blades of grass here, but it's confusing with weeds and interlopers and how that's being managed or mismanaged. And then it's, I mean, clear as day about a family values issue. So I don't know how to bring that up, stay respectful, but protect my own rights. So here's what's hiring for the U.S. spy program in a higher position than I would be hired for, based on the value scale and like a artist's contrast way, just so it's clear and there's some acknowledgement of what's going on in places that I can't reach.
World Autism Month. Young adults with autism have one of the lowest rates of employment among people who have disabilities, even though they are often high functioning. Now, some have...
In my school, never spoke of U.S. spy agency, never spoke of analysts, never spoke of autism, and this says for pilot program, never spoke of that either. I've heard of pilot programs, but nothing like they're trying something out is usually what a pilot program is, for the purposes that it's been used within my earshot.
Some have found new purpose in the intelligence community thanks to a program that's tapping into their unique skills to see the world through a different lens. Senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge has more.
As the war unfolds in Ukraine, intelligence officials rely on satellite images to map movements of Russian forces and on analysts in a field where seeing the world differently has its advantages.
It really feels like for the first time I'm getting to use the strengths that I have.
33-year-old Morgan McCardle is a geospatial analyst at the U.S. government's mapping agency called the NGA.
I'm pretty good at finding patterns.
Zeroing in on tiny details, like this Russian military base near Alaska.
You could see the construction of this area over time.
McCardle sees the big picture in big data sets.
Oh, yes.
How big is big?
Pretty big.
In school, McCardle struggled for years, not quite fitting in, before landing a position so secret she can't discuss her portfolio.
Was school tough for you?
Extremely. It was really difficult for me.
Though early on, McCardle's mother saw her potential.
She could read the billboards backwards, and she would do it perfectly.
But it wasn't until McCardle's own 10-year-old son, Gabriel, got diagnosed as autistic that she began to notice her differences.
My mom was like, well, your son can't have autism. He's just like you.
She says you were surprised.
Oh, yeah.
Were you surprised?
I was. Because she's so high functioning.
Without good options to support her son, McCardle joined a small pilot program with 4 participants at the NGA.
How has the job changed your life?
It's changed everything about my life. I mean, I was on disability for almost 10 years.
How did she even know to go on disability? Where do you go for this disability? Like, that's how horrific the In Touch are here, or the Awake here. They don't even guide you or mentor you to either Meadow Services, Blades of Grass Services, to where hummingbirds exist, since a flower is just an 8 and 7 knows how to fly. Well, the 8 doesn't at the moment, so that gets confusing.
Years?
Here, McCardle's difference actually gives her an edge.
Sometimes I can take what it would take a week for somebody to do in a couple of hours.
A couple of hours?
Yeah, but that's the advantage to being able to hyperfocus.
A new kind of insight that the agency's deputy director calls neurodiversity.
So she calls this neurodiversity, and she's the deputy director. This one right here. While my U.S. Title IX rights have been violated.
This is really broadening that perspective, digging into how can individuals
National Geospatial Intelligence Agency Deputy Director. Just so it's right behind my head so you can see it.
bring a talent and ability that is different than others.
And you can notice patterns of changes in the images.
Is that easy for you?
I've been here for 4 decades. There were no problems until the hummingbird was kept from my flower. Then all sorts of things went into effect. One of them, U.S. Title IX abuses or violations by others, and then the ongoing search for who they are to seek them out. So this way, people are actually held accountable and things get fixed.
Well, this tiny little building right here.
There's no bread and circus in my whatever. I just have no access to employment and what I was built for or what I'd be good for. I also have no access to a number 7 to look up to.
You know, if it expands, that'll be the first thing I notice on the next image.
You immediately go, aha, this has changed, right?
Yes.
That maybe some of your colleagues don't key in on it.
Childhood autism diagnoses have more than doubled since 2000, and nearly half of 25-year-olds with autism have never held a paying job. Now, more families are reaching out to the intelligence community to learn more.
They've never held a paying job. How are they supposed to survive when that many Title IXs have been violated? And that's at a meadow level. I know meadow and blades of grass and weeds are having a problem. I get that. But there are all sorts of resources that are being diverted to help and grow like deep roots in weed territory within affecting blades of grass and affecting the meadow.
What's it like to get those emails?
For me, it's touching. As a mother, I certainly can understand wanting the very best for your children.
Come on, bud.
And broadening the spectrum of potential.
It's a lot like finding where I fit in finally. I was looking for an outlet and it found me, I suppose.
How does that feel inside?
Oh, wonderful. The sky's the limit now. I don't feel like there's anything holding me back.
So they were able to find her. Thanks be to God. What I don't understand is this is a simple solution for people that are in real need. Why is it not being handled in the proper manner?
Now helping the U.S. spy community with a different kind of intelligence.
It's a lot of data to wade through, but that's an advantage to being autistic.
For CBS Mornings, I'm Catherine Herridge in Martinsburg, West Virginia.
Great story. Talks to you about possibilities.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Everybody has something to offer.
Yes.
They really do. What it's worth, Martinsburg, West Virginia, not far from where my mom lives.
Oh, hi,
Pretty
Mom.
part of the country.
I don't know where my relatives are, where my grandmother was born, in West Virginia. I don't even know what her born name was, in West Virginia, but it's not a very large state. But that's interesting that his mom still lives there. And he said that she just went to Italy, which is interesting because that's where Angelina went.
All right. Up next, no one's got any additional comments about Martinsburg?
No, I was just going to say hi
I've never
to
been
Mom,
there.
too.
Yeah. Hi, Mom. Hi, Tony's mom.
Hi,
Got a
Mom.
great son.
She's
I haven't been.
She's Italy.
Tony, I haven't been to Martinsburg, so I didn't know quite what to
Yeah,
say.
me neither.
Yeah.
I apologize.
It's nice.
Okay.
My mom's in Italy right now, so she's not watching. Up next, a new series, We Own This City, is based on real-life corruption inside Baltimore's police department. Actors John Bernthal and Jamie Hector are in our progressive green room to talk about the series and its connection to The Wire.
Hey.
Love it.
But first, time for a check of your local weather.
It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.